Back in the old days, there was this program called Layaway, where you can go into like a store and start making payments on something, some high-dollar ticket item, and once you paid that off every month, it was yours. You could take it home. That's how I bought my first deer rifle from the Marine Corps PX on Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And it was the first, weapon that I bought that I purchased myself. It wasn't a hand-me-down. It wasn't my dad's. It wasn't anything like that. So I went and I picked out this 30-06, and I just didn't have a lot of money. And so I did the layaway program, but I needed a scope on it. And the cheaper scopes were all sold out. And so I bumped up to like this entry-level loophole scope and put that on the layaway program and had them all, put the whole package together for me and all that. Made the payments and finally got to bring it home. Ever since then, almost every rifle I've owned has had a loophole scope. In fact, I'm having a custom rifle built this year, and it's going to have the loophole Mark 5 HD scope on it. I just killed a buffalo with that scope. It's a really great product. And loophole guys, you know them. Everybody knows loophole. They've been around since like 1907. They started as like a special instrument company or something like that. But these American-made products are fantastic. Whether you're looking for a spotter, binos, a rifle scope, accessories, tripods, bipods, all that kind of stuff. You can find it all at loophole.com. And I'd really appreciate if you supported this American company that has a great American story. And I couldn't be a bigger fan of a company, and I'm so happy and thrilled that they've chosen to partner with the Western Huntsman. Thanks to Leupold, and thanks to you guys for supporting our great sponsors. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive, and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio right here in Northwest Montana, and brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals. I got through that whole thing without stuttering and tripping over my own tongue and self and everything else I usually do. Well done. I appreciate that, Sam. So you guys are going to like this one. Sam, I actually, come to find out, I didn't know that I knew Sam. But you guys know how you kind of get to know people on like social media and stuff like that out there listening. Sam is the guest for this week, and what I want to talk about, or what we are going to talk about. Well, let me tell you a little bit about him. Sam Westfall. He's an Army veteran. What I really like about him, he's a serial entrepreneur. He's a competitive archer. And we are going to talk about all these different things that Sam is involved in, because he has got quite the resume here. So I'm pretty excited to have you on, man, and thanks a bunch for joining me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, tell everybody, I kind of gave you the quick intro. Sure. Tell us who you are, and then we'll launch into it, man.
All right. So quick and dirty, Sam Westfall. You already got that part. CEO and founder for Valor Archery Challenge, which is a 3D archery event for military and veteran community using archery as therapy. And then CEO and founder for Archery In Motion, which is the moving target business designed for 3D archery targets or firearms targets.
And it says, like, some of the things I've been reading with you, leveraging decades of experience in hunting and shooting sports.
See all the gray, John?
Yeah. I know, right? I do too. I trim my beard down. You can't really see. I had to keep it this short. It doesn't show up as much.
Right.
Have you ever, be honest, have you ever tried Just for Men?
No.
Me neither. I told my wife I was going to get some just as a joke and try it out, and she got mad. She's like, "You're not doing that."
I've earned every one of these. I'm keeping them.
Me too. That's kind of how I see it. So tell me a little bit about your veteran background real quick, because I think that ties into a lot of what we're going to talk about. You were in the Army.
Yep.
What'd you do in the Army?
So I was a M1 Abrams tank mechanic in the Army.
Okay.
Served just shy of 7 years. I got crushed by a tank. which is what put me out.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got crushed by a tank and you're still talking to me?
Yep. So think two M1 Abrams tanks, one live, one dead. There's a 5-inch steel tow bar that goes between them if you're going to drag them.
Mm-hmm.
Tow pintle was here, tow bar was here. It should have connected. I missed. It went like this, and all the way to the tow bar plus the tank was across my thigh. So it
Ooh.
dislocated my hip, dislocated my knee, crushed all the muscles of my thigh flat.
Holy crap.
9 months of physical therapy ended up putting me out of the Army. Went from the Army to a 22-year-long IT career.
Mm-hmm.
So the Army gave me the steel and welding capabilities for Archery In Motion. The IT career gave me the technology aspect of it. I was a competitive shooter and archer before I went into the Army. So that just carried through my time in the military.
Mm-hmm.
When I got out, I kind of went back to that as my therapy, as it were. Firearms, depression, not a good scenario, but that opened the door for archery to become a bigger scenario and really become my therapy for about the last 14 years. And that's kind of what steered towards the Valor Archery Challenge.
Gotcha. And can we talk about that for a minute, the Valor
Sure.
Archery Challenge? Because you said something a minute ago that I don't want to have it missed. The Valor Archery Challenge, you said, how did you even phrase that? I tried to write it down, but archery as therapy, I guess, for veterans.
3 keywords.
Okay. To expand on that a little bit.
So for a lot of the vets, especially myself, and even the vets that I know, when you go to the gun range, you're earmuffed up, similar to what you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
The bulk of that conversation goes along the lines of what firearm are you shooting and what ammo? And that's in between whatever rounds are going off. Many of the vets that I've talked to, including myself, I realized it took me quite a few more years than I can want to admit, but it took a number of years for me to realize that after my time at the gun range, the depression, the stress, the anxiety, the PTSD, and the heightened situational awareness were amplified for probably 5 to 7 days. And my sleep was destroyed for about a week. Got done at the gun range, put the guns, cleaned them up, put them away. I probably wouldn't touch them for another month and a half. Again, took me a lot longer for me to realize that that was the scenario. Buddy of mine put a bow in my hand and said, dude, just try it. Just try it out. Just tell me if you like it. So I get it. So I put a bow in my hand. I put an arrow down range. And the instant I pulled that string back, everything went quiet. Everything was zen. Everything was calm because I could only focus on the release, the pin, the sight, and the target. When that arrow went out, everything became the stressors, the anxieties, the depression, PTSD, all diminished over time. Here we are 14 years later, pretty calm because I spent a lot of time at the archery range.
Interesting, because there is, and anybody that's shot, whether they're a veteran or not, kind of knows that there is this therapeutic aspect to shooting your bow that you don't. And some people have said that they get that with when they go to the rifle range or something and go shoot their rifle. And I can understand that, but to me, that's more, it's chaos to me. And it's not relaxing. In fact, I think I almost, because I don't understand a lot with when it comes to rifle shooting, that I do with archery. I think it adds to my stress, if you will, because it's like, man, why is my rifle shooting this way? Why is it shooting that way? Why I adjusted this and it's still doing it. But and so there's that aspect, and then the noise and the ruckus and everything else that comes with it. But archery,
when you go to a public gun range, it is chaos.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody to your left and right and whatnot. And archery doesn't have those elements.
No.
Even if it is a public, you go to those public 3D ranges that, some local gun ranges maybe will put together or whatever.
Right.
There's a calmness to it. And there's this relaxation aspect, and that, I was telling you about our little archery, my little dinky, our archery range that I set up here at home. And my daughters and I will go out and we'll spend an hour out there just throwing arrows. And, I could be super stressed out, but I feel great at the end of that.
So go back to that, right? When you go to the gun range, public gun range, you're not really interacting with anybody besides what firearm and what ammunition, because it's just too loud. There's too much chaos going on. When you go to the archery range, even if you go to an archery range for a 3D shoot and you've got 200 to 400 people there, it's still calm. You still get a level of connectedness and camaraderie. And the archery community is a lot more open and receptive to being engaged, whereas at the gun range, they're not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like that. You could really relay, or that's not the right word. You could really look at that comparison from the standpoint of like, you ever been on a mountain during a rifle hunt and there's like 10 other rifle hunters up there and
That's why I
everybody
bow
just
hunt now.
kind of hates each other, right? And everybody's mad when they see you, where
Yep.
it's not really like that in the archery world.
Correct.
And I'm not throwing rocks at rifle hunters. I rifle hunt a bunch. Don't anybody freak out. But
Did it for
you know,
decades.
the difference is you know, and I think it has a lot to do with you're working in such close proximity with the game species that you're after, that you know, a hunter a half a mile away on the ridge isn't going to be of huge impact to your hunt. Most likely that's not always the case. However, it's a much friendlier environment.
It
It's
is.
a way friendlier environment. And you know, bow hunters tend to wave at each other more. They tend to stop and chat with each other and kind of share information, even if it is a lie. Oh yeah, I had a big old bull bugling right
That's
down there,
right.
man, and you know, send them in the opposite direction or whatever. Yeah, you know, and I don't know what that is. I think a lot of it has to do with what I was talking about, proximity hunting, that
Yep.
hunter rifle season that can have a big impact on you. So, Valor Archery Challenge, you start this because you understand kind of this therapeutic aspect of shooting a bow. Um, how do you tie that? You tie that in with veterans, and kind of what's the goal with that?
So for my main goal is to bring archery as therapy to the military and veteran community, bring a level and sense of camaraderie and connectedness. So as if they're active military transitioning out into the civilian world, the transition is easier now than what it was when I got out, but they still walk out the door with little to no connectedness. Friend circles have diminished, and they really don't know where to meet new people at.
Yeah.
Valor Archery Challenge steps in for that. If you've never shot a bow before, I'm bringing rental gear and coaches to the table. I'm also bringing the veteran service organizations for booths. I'm bringing the veteran hunting and fishing organizations for booths. Really, it's more about a community event than it is an archery event. It just has archery involved.
And is that actually, before I ask you that, when did you get out, Sam?
2001.
2001. Okay. Um, it's funny you say that, the transitioning from military to civilian life. Because I was in the military. Everybody warned me that boot camp was this big scary thing. You know,
That was easy in comparison.
yeah, man, I was in multiple different overseas deployments, if you will. You know, from Iraq to Djibouti, Africa, to Kosovo,
Okay.
all these crazy places we went, and had crazy experiences. And when you look at all of that and compare it to the first 6 months of getting out of the Marines, that 6 months after post Marine Corps or post military was way more difficult than
Oh,
boot
yeah.
camp and deployments and everything else. That transition back. Can you speak to that a little bit? I always like to get everybody's take on that.
So, and again, I got out in 2001 before it all went sideways. So, but even when I got out, there was no transition programs like there are today.
Yeah.
It was back up. I went in at 17 and a half, had my parents sign in 94. I went through boot camp. I had every intention of doing a full 20. I got crushed. I spent 9 months in physical therapy. I got med boarded out. And my military time and my military career came to an abrupt halt right then. Well, that spins you into depression and cycles and alcoholism and
Mm-hmm.
firearms. Again, not good combinations.
Yep.
And because there wasn't any type of transition programs at the time for us, it really was about me trying to figure out what that looked like. And alcohol became a major thing for me for a number of years. Again, not the best route, but that's what it was. So I tried to go back into the shooting sports and firearm spaces because, okay, at least that's something I know, that's something I have familiarity with, that's something that I can maybe connect with a few people with.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the right space, but it was at least something. What I'm seeing today with the availability of programs for those transitioning out, they really are trying to help those that are transitioning acclimate, I think is the right word, into the civilian world. but they make a lot of connections, but probably not the right ones, right? They help you find those next jobs, the next, resume work, the next position, but not necessarily developing your network or your friend circles
Yeah.
like you had in the military. You don't
Yeah.
have that camaraderie.
You don't have the camaraderie, and you don't have the sense of purpose, and you just feel like you don't have a tribe.
Correct.
When you get out, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because you tanker dudes are crazier than just the regular everybody else.
It's a deep circle.
It is a deep circle. My buddy Jim Nash, he does the I don't know if you know, if with the
I know
six
the
range
name.
pod.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was a tanker in the Marines,
Oh, okay.
you guys are just all kind of crazier. I
Yeah.
think, and I don't know, it comes out of that driving tanks around or something. But no, and you probably know exactly what I'm referring to. But you, when you get out of the military, you've had this structured way of life with all these friends that you know them very well. Like there's not a friend as close as your military friends, right?
Correct.
And all of a sudden you're kind of thrown out away from all of that. Your purpose, your mission, your uniform, your friends, your tribe, if you will, and connecting to people that have never been there. All of a sudden, that's what you're surrounded by, and it makes it really difficult to transition. And
Yep.
so I really like it when people like yourself focus on that aspect of the military. And for those of you listening that are in the military, because we have a pretty big listenership, um, that are still active duty, that really is a challenge that you need to look forward to, not in a positive way. I mean, a plan for, I suppose,
Plan
because
for it is the right way. Yeah.
you will suddenly be a fish out of water. So,
And it's harder for some than others.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and your experience in the military has a lot to do with that, and your
What branch you were
how
in.
long you were in, what branch you were in, what job you had, yeah, all that kind of stuff. It really does plays into that. But I really love the idea of this Valor Archery Challenge, and I think that what that achieves is when we're talking about somebody that's like feeling like a fish out of water, like we were just saying, um, it gives them kind of a start for a tribe
It
and
does.
somewhere they belong. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason active military, veterans, civilians, because it is open to the public. But again, I'm trying to focus that towards the active duty and military.
Yeah.
The other side of that is bringing the veteran service organizations and the veteran hunting communities into that and offering them booths up. Now those individuals have a point of contact for each of those companies or each of those groups, and they don't have to go try and find them on their own. That also introduces them to, hey, maybe there's somebody else that's like-minded or in a similar space of where I'm at, and this is an opportunity to connect with them. And it just gives a more open door on neutral ground rather than them trying to go find it all themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you've got an event coming up in Colorado Springs, right? Because you're based out of Colorado Springs.
Correct. Yep.
Is that because were you stationed there at
I was. Yep. Fort Carson was
Fort
my last
Carson?
duty
I
station.
almost called it Fort Bragg because that's been in the news the last couple of days. So
Right.
I'm like drawing a blank on it, but I know Fort Carson. So you've got this event. Let me pull this website back up. Talk to everybody about this event you got coming up in April.
So that'll be the first for 2025, not technically, but first major event for 2025. It's on Fort Carson. Again, rental gear, coaches will be there on site. So I'm probably going to have somewhere in the 10 to 12 archery coach range. Rental gear is $15. Coaches come along for free. They're really just there to grab a hold of you, teach you how to shoot, kind of walk you through the process. That takes you into the entry level course, which is 15 targets, nothing more than 20 yards. Everything's broadside. Build that confidence, that camaraderie, and kind of the feel of what you're doing. Once you're comfortable there, step over to the intermediate course. We're going to have a couple moving targets, courtesy of Archery In Motion. Those shots will go out to 50 yards. Half the targets will be broadside. The other half will be quartering to or quartering away. Couple of frontals.
Can I ask you something right there?
Go ahead.
You're going to have a 50-yard shot on a moving target?
There might be.
That would be rad. That's pretty cool. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just curious.
And it might be a frontal shot.
Yeah.
We put a coyote with a frontal neck rings on the mover.
Hmm.
at like 46 yards moving directly towards you. So
Oh,
not only
wow.
is it changing distance, but it's, it's coming at speed. It's a whole different world for archery practice.
And is this just for veterans? This
No,
particular?
open to the
Okay,
public.
so anybody can come. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Do you do these like more than just in Colorado Springs, or is this
Yep.
you looking to do it in Montana anytime? Or
Actually, I was chatting with one of the board of directors for Warriors and Quiet Waters not too long ago, which they're based out of Montana. And he was going to see if they could introduce me into some folks up there. Talking with a group out of South Dakota, talking
Mhm.
with a group in Vegas, talking with a group in Georgia. Um, so while the major event will be here in Colorado Springs, Fort Carson, I've also got a extreme event that's booked in May on Armed Forces Day, which will be up in Bailey, Colorado, up in the mountains. So that's going to have some extreme angles. We're going to do some farther out to 100-yard shots, small targets, really make you work for it.
So the one in Montana that you mentioned that you're kind of in the works talks with, where are they located? Do you know what part
I
of
don't
Montana?
know off the top of my head.
I might have an idea for you for kind of northwestern Montana, north. And what would be cool about that is it's close to North Idaho too. So
Yeah, there we
all
go.
my peeps. I used to live in North Idaho, and so
Got it.
kind
Yeah,
of that
okay.
whole Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint area, they could shoot over. But I have a really good spot for it, is what I'm thinking. So
Hey,
we
if
should
you can
probably
help me
talk.
connect it up, we'll connect the dots. We'll make it work.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that. I love this idea because I think that interestingly. I want to talk about the moving targets too, but like to that point of these 3D kind of archery challenges really do make hunters a better archer, and
That's
because
absolutely
it adds a different level. Like when I go out in the backyard and I shoot at my little elk target or whatever that I set up, yeah, there's no stress with that. And there's even though I'll get all my gear on, I'll go out there just like it's September and try to practice with all that gear. And but that there's no added element of stress other than my daughters will heckle me if I miss,
right.
That's about it. Other
But
than
you know your
that,
distance, you
I
know
know
your
my
shot angle.
distance. I do. And that's another issue I have in my yard is I wish I had more up down angles. But I want to ask you this because with like the moving targets, like you were talking about the coyote coming in frontal or
Yep.
or some of these other targets we're going to talk about. Um, when I'm guiding, I tell my hunter never to shoot at a moving target. I want that elk to stop. I don't
Great
s-
theory.
I don't usually I don't always follow that advice myself. If I know that front leg, if he's broadside and that elk's stepping forward with that leg that's exposed to me, I'll stick an arrow in there if I can, right?
Yep.
I'm hesitant with clients, but if we had a way to practice that, because let's face it, sometimes an elk comes in real slow, right? And
Yep.
he's just kind of he knows something's up and he's on high alert. And if you stop him, he might just bust. And so how does that tie in? Like you're a really good I'm an okay archer, you're a really good archer. So how
Thank
does
you.
that tie into like hunting and what you think it does to your skill level?
So I've got a couple pieces here. One, I had the conversation with a gentleman not too long ago, actually. Like you, try not to shoot moving targets. However, we were always taught not to shoot moving targets because there's a danger factor in that. There's, if an elk takes a step, it's 3 feet.
Yep.
Just went from lungs to guts in a heartbeat.
Yep.
However, in Colorado, most of the animals have been hunted so hard and so heavy over the last 20 years or better that if you throw an elk call, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to stop or they're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
And I would much rather them not know that I am anywhere close to them. But if they're moving through and they happen to take that step, it's not even a blink for me to take that shot because I've already practiced it 2,000 times on the moving targets. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So, um,
So so practicing oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so I will throw this out here because you said I'm a decent shot and I appreciate that. I have 4 Robin Hoods on moving targets.
Really? Explain a Robin Hood to somebody who might not know.
So a Robin Hood is when you put one arrow in a spot and you put a second arrow or a second arrow directly into that first arrow as it sits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it's a stationary target, that's one thing. And I think last I looked, the numbers were somewhere around the one out of every 5,000 arrows shot ends up with a Robin Hood. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking a moving target, you've got one arrow here and it's doing this and it's bumping because the ground's not smooth, but that second arrow managed to hit inside of that first arrow. I've got 4 of them.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, man. The only way I'd do that is by accident.
I can't say they're on purpose. I can just say that I got them.
Well, tell everybody about the Archery In Motion, because we keep kind of dancing around and we talk about these moving targets.
Sure.
People might not know what this Archery In Motion is. Talk to us about that.
So, Archery In Motion is the moving target business, designed for 3D archery or firearms targets. So, if you want to shoot steel plate or cardboard silhouettes on it, throw them up there. It's already pre-drilled, ready to go. Really, it's designed for 3D archery targets, anything from an armadillo all the way to the full-size buffalo, wireless controlled out to 100 yards. So you can really make some fun shots out of it. I've got a couple different models, 8-foot straight line movement. So very limited amount of space if you've got a limited amount of space in the backyard that you can work with. 10-foot, and then that one you can integrate a solar panel. So if you really want to throw it out farther out in the sticks, not have it hooked up to power, solar panel charges it all day, every day, as long as you got sunlight. And then I've got one in prototype, and I sent Jim the video of this a little bit ago, but it's a 62-foot oval track. So it gives you quartering to, quartering away, broadside, frontal, and 12-foot distance change, all in that same shot scenario.
You know, I'm watching the video of the oval track on the website right now. What I like about, is that your property?
It's a buddy of mine's, but yeah.
Is it? Okay. It's cool property. But what I like about that is like where he's shooting from in this video, he could take 10 steps to his right, heck, 2 steps to his right, and have like a bunch of whole new shots without moving very far.
Exactly.
Like I love that idea. And the oval, so you guys got to check this out. So you guys listening, it's archeryinmotion.com. It'll be in the show notes here. Let's go back to this straight line one. You've got an 8-foot and a 10-foot. I'm watching the video on that. The Sasquatch.
Yeah,
kind of going forward. So, what guys, for those of you listening, that kind of just for a visual, you set this track on the ground, and it's 10 feet long. You know, the straight line. There's like a base on one side and like the motor compartment on the other, and you set the target on top of the platform, and it moves it from right to left. Does it go in reverse too? Does it just?
It does.
Back up. Okay, so you could be shooting from left to right with your bow, or shooting from from right to left with your bow, or rifle if you want to do that. Are all those sounds popping up off my laptop?
I don't hear any of them.
Okay, good. Hopefully they don't show up. My emails are going crazy. I don't know how to turn that off. Anyway, it's really cool. It's really cool because like you said, the idea, like if you can nail that target, how long does it take, like that Sasquatch one, to get from the right side to the left side when you start moving?
So it's about 12.5 to 13 seconds to go from one end to the other on a 10-footer. So it's about 2.1 to 2.2 miles an hour. That's the equivalent of a mule deer or a turkey walking through the woods that has no idea you're there.
Okay.
And that's by design, right? We're not trying to induce any target panic.
How many seconds did you say? You cut right
about 13.
About 13. Okay. So 13 seconds from right to left. So I'm just kind of thinking out, like I'm really excited about this. You could tell I start getting, I need to slow down.
You're not stammering yet, but you're good.
I'm about to stammer. You could get a good guy. Like, I feel like I can get 3 arrows in that from one. You can get 2.
I can get 2.
You can get 2. Okay. You're better than me.
If I have someone else starting it, I can almost get 3 arrows.
Oh, because you got to push the button and then.
So it's designed to where a single shooter can set it up and operate it all at the same time. So it's about 20 minutes to set up, drop it in place, connect everything up, connect up the battery and the solar panel, under 20 minutes or less, and you're good to go. The remote is only about 2 to 2.5 inches tall, and I've got it on a loop, so I can put it on my bino harness. On my draw cycle, my thumb comes out, I hit that button, and it starts moving. Now I can get lined up, take that first shot, and then I can reload another arrow and send another arrow before it gets to the end.
Okay, so the point I was going to make is still the same then.
Yep.
I'm looking at this. I feel like I can get 3, man. But if you can't get 3, I know I can't get 3.
If you're a trad shooter, you could probably get 3.
Yeah, maybe a trench. Yeah. Good point. So I'm looking at this, but like if you could sauce that thing twice with your bow in one cycle, when you get out to the elk woods or
It's easy.
whitetail, whatever, man, that's going to be an easy shot. That bull comes stammering out of the brush or whatever, and you give him a little meow cow call and stop him, man. That's gonna be money.
So
I
I've
I
had
want one of these.
So Archery in Motion has been in business for 2 years this month. In 2024, I ended up putting 2 elk and a mule deer in my freezer because I've been practicing on that moving target for 2 years now.
Back a couple months ago, I did an episode with Brandon Maddox, who is the founder and owner of Silencer Central. You should listen to that episode. It's episode 197. I love this company. I love this brand, and I love the American-made product that Silencer Central produces. I used the Banish 30 on my hunting rifle, and if you guys follow me on Instagram and you saw that video I put together, you'll see that it's not like what Hollywood portrays it as. It's not like it silences the rifle down into nothing. But it makes a huge difference. Like, my ears don't ring when I shoot. The animals don't know where the shot is coming from. It disorients the sound. And Silencer Central makes it super easy for you guys. Jump on to silencercentral.com and pick one out. You could ship your rifle to them. They'll thread your barrel. They'll ship it back. This is like a 10-day process. And the ATF process is shortened significantly. It's like down to 48 hours or less. It's the best time ever to get a silencer on your weapon, and you should check it out because it really is a game changer. SilencerCentral.com is where you could find them, or you can call 866-891-4494, and they're happy to answer questions. It's crazy. They actually have people that answer their phone. Again, guys, go to SilencerCentral.com. It's one of my favorite sponsors out there. These guys are just absolutely world-class with these world-class products, and I can't recommend putting a silencer on your hunting rifle enough. Save your ears, disorient the sound in case you need another shot. I mean, it's a game changer, folks. Check it out. American-made products are the name of the game for me and the Western Huntsman. I really will go out of my way and spend more money to buy things that are American-made and keeps jobs and things like that right here in the United States of America. That brings us to Vantage Point Archery. If you haven't listened yet, wherever you listen to your podcast as, go find episode 201, Vantage Point Archery, with Ryan Corkwell and Jeff Stringer. Those are the founders of Vantage Point Archery, and these are great dudes. They'll give you a lot of the insight and information that you need on picking out your broadhead for this season. Don't wait any longer, guys, because season is going to be here before we know it. It's almost here. I am going to be shooting the VPA Omega with bleeders for this elk season. They have the single bevels, 2-blade, 3 blades. These are great broadheads. They're American-made. They're tried and true. They're tested. I've been shooting them all summer. Really impressed with this company, and I couldn't be happier having them as a sponsor on this show. Happy to partner with them. Thanks, guys. Gotcha. I'm gonna figure out how to. I don't have the cheddar for that big oval one, but I know somebody who does, and they'll let me use it whenever I want. So
There you
it's
go.
kind of like, and in return, I have a boat and he doesn't, so I'll take him fishing.
There you go. That's a fair trade.
Where are you selling these targets? These are Archery in Motion targets, like just the basic straight line ones, because they're obviously
So I've got a couple that are out there already. Colorado Bowhunters Association bought one. A couple of the local ranges have picked them up. Right now, I've just got a couple units that I'm using for demo and for the Valor Archery Challenge events.
Mm-hmm.
Moving targets. I took Archery in Motion across the country in 2024, 16 major archery events. Between podcasts and events, I had it in front of about 300,000 shooters. And while everybody enjoyed shooting it, I think it scared a lot of folks to buying into it, strictly for your comment earlier about we were always taught unethical to shoot a moving target.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to pick up momentum here down the road. But people have to get used to it, have to get comfortable with the idea, have to realize that it really is a substantial training tool for their hunting season.
Yeah, I mean that's how I would look at it. I like my daughter is in the she's in the archery league at the school, and I think of like they use those what are those Genesis bows?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
the high school archery, the bows. They're pretty sweet little bows, actually, but if she was able to take that and put 2 arrows in that, again, we're looking from like a training standpoint. When she goes to the next tournament, I think is next month sometime in Helena, Montana, she'd kill it.
Mhm.
And it's just for that very, very thing of, again, this is going to be one of those products that you'll kind of have to educate people on, that you're not advocating shooting moving targets, you're advocating training.
But when you practice on that moving target, right? Improved practice equals improved success.
Mm-hmm.
And that improved practice really does make a difference in showing what you're capable of, what your shot process looks like, and what that stress and that anxiety of shooting that animal, this really not mimics it, but it's the closest thing you're going to get to mimicking that.
Where do you manufacture these at? Just at
I
home?
do.
You make them?
Yep.
How cool is that? So it's made in America.
Made in America.
I like
Veteran
made in
owned.
America. What's that?
Veteran owned.
Veteran owned. I like it. I like your thinking, man. This is great. Where'd you come up with this idea?
This was me going to a bunch of different archery events over the last 8 to 10 years and realizing that, am I muted? No, we're good.
No, you're good.
Realizing that stationary targets you have all the time in the world for. And
Mhm.
while a lot of these events are fun, they give you all the time in the world. You've got to, if you're the shooter and under certain rules and regulations, you've got a 2-minute time window to take that shot. Great. But as a bow hunter, you might only have seconds.
Mhm.
And I kind of juggling that of where can I go with that? How can I improve that so that people become a better shot, they have a better level of practice, they get more comfortable and reduce the number of wounded animals? Well, I've got the welding skills, I've got the technology skills. Let's figure out how to put it together and make it work. Here we are.
Yeah. And I wanna look at, like, if somebody were to buy the 10-foot moving target platform that comes with the track and the base and the motor and all that kind of stuff, and then the platform in which it moves. And then
Correct.
how do you attach the target to that platform? Is there
Great question. So threaded rebar.
Oh, I could see, and it's right here on your website. Threaded 6-inch long threaded rebar, and that just kind of, most of those come with those anyway.
Yep. So almost all the targets, 3D archery targets, come with 1/2-inch mounting holes.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to rebar as their design. So I took that same theory because rebar is strong enough that it's not going to bend or less likely to bend.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's use rebar. Let's thread it. And then now I've got pre-drilled holes across the top plate on the platform. And you just measure out where the pulls or where the threaded rebar needs to get bolted to, drop the target on it. If you want to change targets on that, it's a 3-minute process or less, depending on the size of the target.
And when somebody orders one of these, it's like you've got to take that order and make it then and then ship it? Or do you
I've got a couple on hand.
You
sitting
do?
in the garage, ready to go. Yep.
You got 10-footer on hand?
Yeah.
How soon can you get it to me? You're giving me a freebie, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, if we coordinate it right, we could probably bring it up and deliver it, then we can shoot.
We can shoot it, man. I've got a great idea. I really do. I think we're looking at with the outfitter I've been guiding for. They're looking at doing, like, and this would be perfect. Like, outfitters and other organizations should do this across the country. But we're looking at, they do a long range shooting course, right? And I do on this podcast a series called School of September, where it's real specific to archery elk hunting. I did. You got to love Joe, right? I mean,
so Joe was not a fan of the whole moving target thing.
Wasn't he? Is that
not
because of he was worried about people wanting to shoot a moving target?
Yep.
Yeah.
But I was at a Western Hunt Fest event last year, had the moving target out there. Him and I had a wonderful conversation. The next day he came out and he shot it. I won't say that he got humbled by it, but he got humbled by it.
Yeah.
And he grabbed a hold of me and said, yeah, I can see this is real.
Yeah.
So yes, we need to put a couple of these in place.
See, if you can make a believer out of Joe, he's north of 40 years in elk hunting experience. Yeah,
right.
So that's awesome. What the heck was I talking about before that?
School of September.
That's what I was saying. So, like, you take people can listen to things like Joe Gilia from Elk Bros on School of September, but there's like this need for that concept in person. You can learn a lot listening to podcasts. You can learn a lot by watching videos on YouTube or whatever. But there's something about being in person and having like an expert like you behind somebody holding a bow, learning how to shoot animals in real time. Where like especially go ahead.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
I would bet 90 to 95% of your listeners know the exact feet per second of their bow right now as it sits in the closet or in their case. I would bet you know the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Kind of, yeah.
But what does that mean? And what does that translate to? A, at distance is one thing, but B, what does it translate to on a moving target? So if I put that walking bear target on it out there at, let's call it 48 yards, how fast is that arrow actually going to get there? From a distance perspective, you can judge that, sure. But until you practice on that moving target to understand, are you going to shoot it forward? Are you going to shoot it back? Or are you going to shoot it in the 12 ring? That's where this thing really comes into play and teaches people, schools people on what they and their bows are capable of doing.
Yeah, I mean, and where else? It's so practical from that standpoint when you put it like that. It's just I don't know. I guess my vision is I want to take like this concept of School of September and I want to make it like this live event for from a Friday to a Sunday or something like that. Where people come out and we've got they could stay in the cabins at the lodge at the outfitter. And where I could bring in people like Joe and my buddy Dirk Durham and myself to teach calling, and then have the actual elk experts doing seminars on, we're right here in the elk woods where this lodge is.
Yeah.
Let's go into the woods and let's start looking for things that you can identify that make this elk country. Why is there going to be elk here? What is it about this side of the drainage versus that side of the drainage?
Dark nastiness.
Exactly. And teach people like in person, because I'm sure you see this all the time, Sam, like on social media, like you're this archery guru, right? And you probably see people posting videos of themselves shooting targets and whatever, and some of the stuff you see drives you crazy, and that's okay. I see a lot of that too, and I know that there's so many people that even if they have like years of experience, they're going out into the elk woods and they're really focusing on the wrong things, right? They're focusing on the wrong things and they're spending money where they don't need to spend money before they get there in hopes that spending that money is going to get them a notch tag and things like that. So like that kind of training, I really believe that in-person training and it would make a big difference. And if we can incorporate
even learning how
like
to
moving, e-scout, yeah. And but incorporating a moving target within all this, we're going to learn how to call elk. We're going to learn how to locate elk. We're going to learn how to a little bit of woodsmanship skills right here in the elk woods.
How to set up your shot. How to understand shooting around those trees.
Yeah.
Or what trees you can shoot through and which ones you can't. Right?
I can't tell you how many trees I've killed thinking I was going to get an elk.
My buddies and I like to practice in a scenario where if it's a deciduous, right? If it's a leafy tree, as long as the branches aren't bigger than your arrow, and I shoot 4mm arrows, as long as your branches aren't bigger than the arrow, you could probably punch through that tree just hitting leaves and it'll be just fine. Versus if you try to shoot through an evergreen or a spruce or a fir, it's not going to go.
Yeah.
But you don't know that until you practice it.
And I'll tell you what always gets me, Sam, is when you're talking about evergreens, you know how those old branches turn into twigs and they're kind of dead branches?
Yeah, but they're hard as a rock.
Yeah, man. And you can't, in the heat of the moment, you've got a freaking screaming bull, 30 yards in front of you. And like you're focused on looking at that bull and trying to get that arrow in the right spot.
Well, what's that trajectory look like?
Yeah, the trajectory and just like the total chaotic blinding that happens to little
Mhm.
details like that sometimes when your adrenaline is up.
Yep.
That
And
happens.
understand, really what's your setup look like, right? If you're
Mhm.
using a vented broadhead, those arrows are screaming. If you're using a boning blazer vane, those arrows are screaming and coming in. Those animals are
Yeah.
going to hear it. Other vanes are quieter. Non-vented broadheads are quieter, so they fly different. But you got to understand what you're capable of doing before you ever get to the woods.
What do you see as like the biggest mistake that new elk hunters make archery wise when they're out there?
Um, you already mentioned one of them, and that's going and buying a ton of gear that they probably don't need.
Mm-hmm.
Go back 150 years ago, our grandpas were out there in plaid flannel, and they did just fine. It doesn't take all the gear in the world to get there. You're spending money and it looks cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worthwhile. The other piece is not understanding what the animals want, what the animals need during the time of year, time of the season that they're hunting.
Yeah. So like behavior,
Yeah.
animal behavior. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big one. Um, I'm trying to build like this consensus of, people that spend a lot of time in the woods, they start picking up on why people fail a lot and consistent. And I'm famous for that. But I think you're right. I think who said that? I think it was Cody Rich on his podcast. He said,
Randy Newberg's also said it.
has you buy tags, not gear
Yeah.
kind of thing. And
Yep.
getting that firsthand experience. It's
And
one of those
I had a
guys.
buddy of mine last year that I took him out a couple years ago, but I had a buddy last year that he found elk. He was on elk, but he couldn't get on him for a couple days in a row. So he changed spots.
Oh no.
What are you doing? You had elk. Yeah, but they
Yeah.
didn't come back. Yeah, but give them 24 hours. They'll come back again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Unless you blow them out, you're going to want to give them a few days. But I
Right.
mean,
But he completely changed locations just because he didn't, he couldn't
yeah,
see him for a day. And those are those hard lessons learned, but it's a lesson.
that is one of the hardest things that people have is actually locating
Mhm.
active elk. I love talking about my buddy Dirk Durham over at Phelps.
Oh yeah, I know Dirk.
He said he had this great line. This was a couple years ago on the pod. I think it was a School of September episode, but he said, "Fall in love with finding elk. Don't fall in love with an area."
Right.
And I don't know, anybody who's hunted has probably been guilty of this. I know I have, where 25 years ago I saw a bull elk there, and so I go back to that spot every year, and I'm like, man, there's going to be an elk, and there hasn't been an elk in 2 decades. Yeah, but I'm like in love
Yeah.
with this area because one time I saw an elk there, and that's what he's referring to. Fall
I
in
got
love with finding elk. What was
I've got
that?
a buddy of mine that likes to give me a hard time, and that's I can bounce from spot to spot within Colorado without ever stepping foot in there with just doing e-scouting up front. And I'm pretty typical about bringing something home every year,
Yeah.
even changing locations, only going up there for, 5 to 7, 10 days. But as long as you figure out what the e-scouting looks like and figure out where to go, how to plan that and get in there, deep,
Mhm.
dark, nasty, north facing slope, you're going to find something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Not to totally shift gears, but
Sure.
what's speaking back to the Valor Archery Challenge, what's the goal with that? Do you have what's the mission behind that?
So mission is to bring archery as therapy to the military and veteran community. TAC is a great event, right? It really focuses on the extreme shooters. It really gets people out there and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a brand new shooter, you've never shot before, TAC is very, very intimidating. Western Hunt Fest is really focused towards that bow hunter community. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but that's a limited scope in the depth of things. Groups like Beast Mode Archery out in Wisconsin, they're focused on that hunter athlete, bow hunter, but it's a smaller community comparably to what TAC is capable of bringing to the table. I want, again, that archery and therapy, right? That's why I'm offering rental gear. That's why I'm bringing coaches to the table. That's why I'm bringing all the veteran service organizations to the table. Really bringing that more as the community camaraderie event that just happens to incorporate archery into the space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to benefit the military and veteran community more than anything, right? So you and I both know that the 22 a day is a horrible number.
Yep.
Those that are doing the 22 a day push-up challenge or the 22-mile ruck march, It's great that you're doing it. I have no heartburn with you doing it, and no problem with anybody that supports that. But that's not really affecting or impacting the military veteran community directly to where it's reducing that number. I'm hoping that bringing archery as a therapy can really help to reduce that number overall.
And have you had have you had any pushback on that from
None.
none? And are you getting a lot of support from organizations that claim to be for, because
Yep.
and the reason why I'm asking you this, Sam, is I've seen a lot of chatter about, oh, we need to help the veterans, but there's a lot of chatter and not a lot of put your money where your mouth is kind of thing going on with that. And the 22 a day number, for those of you listening that don't know what that is, that's like roughly 22 suicides a day from the veteran community. And I see it a lot from guys that one of the reasons I got on Facebook years ago was it was a way to stay connected with my Marine buddies. And we have like our private Facebook groups of like our unit, unit specific,
Nice.
whether it's battalion level or company level or whatever. We have like these specific units that we can. It's people we know for the most part, unless it's guys that came in 10 years after us or 10 years before us or something.
Still,
but I see a lot of posts in those groups of, "Hey guys, it's been fun. Wish you all well, but I'm checking out," kind of thing. And a lot of times nothing really comes out of that, but sometimes it does. And the problem is knowing how to identify whether that is a cry for help or a real, hey, so long, farewell, and following seas or whatever. That's really hard because guys like me feel really helpless in that situation. What do you think?
And I would agree. It's understanding what it is versus what it does and trying to figure out where that line is about where you help. Do you drop everything for everyone? You can't. It's just not feasible. There are groups dedicated out there. Battle Buddy Response Team is one of them. All branches, all states, call the number. They'll get somebody local to go out and help that impacted veteran. They're one of those that I'm trying to bring to the table as a booth so that there's a direct connection with a local resource of, if you are in crisis, you have someone to reach out to.
Yeah.
So again, trying to make it more about a community camaraderie event rather than just that archery space. Archery is just the therapy.
Yeah. I really like that concept because you're right. It's not about the archery itself. It's about the community. Archery is just the perk and the therapeutic outlet for that. And do you think that a lot of that, suicidal thoughts and ideation from the veteran community, does that come from, in your mind, that adjustment back to civilian life and that lack of purpose or mission or something? I don't know how to explain that.
Lack of purpose, lack of camaraderie, lack of connections, bottom of the bottle, time alone, all those pieces contribute to it because I was almost there.
Yeah.
And I know it well. The goal is to transition that, bring those folks together, give them a different connection, a different avenue. One other piece of that, when you go to the gun range and you're shooting a human silhouette, you've got a neural connection memory directly to that piece of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll reset every time that you pull that trigger. When you go to the archery space, there is no neural connection between you using that bow and shooting that foam 3D animal. Now it's just fun. Now it's just camaraderie. Now it's just building new memories, forcing that. I don't want to say forcing those old memories out, but it's repairing and replacing with something new and entertaining.
It's creating memories that overpower the bad memories, if
Correct.
that makes sense. And I say that for folks that are listening that may not have served, which is totally fine, but those folks don't understand the magnitude of the impact that the military, and it doesn't matter if you served overseas or didn't. The magnitude of the impact in your life and your time in the military is unexplainable to somebody that hasn't done it. It's
Correct.
something, no matter, and I don't care if you were an accountant in the Air Force, the magnitude of of that time that you spend in the military is unlike anything you will ever experience in your the rest of your life. I mean, I think about my time every day, and I've been out for over 2 decades.
Same.
Yeah, 22 years, man. I got out in the middle of 2003.
Yeah.
In fact, we were in the military at the same time together. I went in '99, but you're obviously a lot older than me.
Hey, be nice with that.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so I think that's great because I think that hunting in general and the outdoor enthusiast lifestyle is a great way. I've got this guy. I call him a buddy. I don't actually know him. His name's Drew Berg. But he does this thing where he guides specifically for veterans. He takes veterans on these guided hunts, and it could be a turkey hunt, it could be a bear hunt, an elk hunt, whatever. But he sets up and arranges these hunts specifically for veterans because veterans need that time. There is something about hunting that just like shooting a bow on a range, there's this therapeutic aspect to being an actual participant in nature and not just like a, observer. Does that make sense?
Yep. And to that, right?
Excuse me.
I'm a solo hunter, so I'm in a slightly different space there. But predominantly, most folks that hunt in groups, and for those in the military or veterans, that hunting group is about as close as you're going to get to those that you served with.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's that direct connection in that.
It's the shared hardship, that shared hardship, the embrace the suck togetherness that I guess is what helps with that. Because I'm like you, man. When I'm hunting for myself, I'm usually solo. I'll go out sometimes with like my cousin or whatever. But most of the time I'm by myself, and honestly, that is when it is the most therapeutic for me, and the most I get the most out of it when I'm alone.
Yep.
And I don't know why that is. The only exception to that I've been finding lately, Sam, is I get a lot of enjoyment out of taking my kids out, my girls.
Yeah.
They're I don't know. I never thought that, like, I've always kind of been a little selfish with my hunting time.
Yeah, but that's sharing traditions downrange, and that's a good thing.
It is there is something so fulfilling about taking my daughters out and seeing them experience it. But yeah, man, I love what you're doing with that. I think that I like talking to guys that I feel like actually care and want to make like a positive impact, and that's what kind of brought me to thinking, Stan would be a great guy to get on a show because he's got a mission bigger than himself. You're not just here to, sell somebody a piece of gear or something.
The money will come. It's just a fact, but there is more about how can I introduce archery as a therapy to the rest of the military.
Yeah.
Again, TAC, Western Hunt Fest, Beast Mode Archery, Montage Mountain Archery Fest, name it. None of those groups offer rental gear.
Yeah, you do.
I do. So that's, it really is to try and bring that community together so that like you said earlier, archery is a community. That archery community is very tight. They're willing to help. They're willing to talk. They're willing to listen. Let's bring those folks in that need that talk, camaraderie, community, and folks that are willing to listen. Let's bring them into the table. Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And well, let's do this because I don't ask this question very often, but I don't normally have super high caliber archery guys. Tell me about your bow and your archery setup for elk season. Let's stir the pot.
All right. So I'm a Hoyt guy. We'll start there.
You snob, you.
Yeah, it goes a little worse. RX-7 carbon fiber.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the top tier, right?
Yeah.
I started with a bare bow years ago. I ended up being able to outshoot what it was capable of doing, so I had to bump it up, move to a mid-level. Again, had to bump to a top tier. My arrows are custom built, so Easton Axis 4 mils. I do quad fletchings. I really like the Annihilator broadheads. I use red nocturnals on the tail end so that I can find the arrows after the fact, because most animals that I shoot are later on in the day or early in the evening.
Mhm.
So it's easier to find your arrow rather that way you're not out there chasing your arrow all night. I'd rather be cutting up an animal and hauling it back.
Yeah.
Um, kind of to that point, that snob aspect. I'm a big Kuyu guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it,
I
their
swear
gear,
that everybody here in Northwest, I'm the only guy that doesn't wear Kuyu up here. It's like the Montana tuxedo.
yeah,
You got to
I
have the
believe that.
Kuyu.
Their gear is comfortable. It wears
Yeah,
well.
it's good
It
stuff.
holds up well.
Yeah.
I can put a whole mule deer in my backpack and haul it out in one trip. It sucks, but I can do it. But their packs hold up to that kind of weight, and it's nice to be able to have gear that can hold up to that level of rigor and not fall apart after 3 or 4 years.
So, what can people do to support the Valor Archery Challenge mission? To help support, is there anything they could do outside of registering and attending an event?
There is. So if you own a business, specifically a veteran-owned business, but I'll work with any business, and you want to offer up raffle prizes, I'm happy to work with you. If you want to sponsor a target, I am happy to work with you and get your name, logo, QR code, website directly on a target so people get to see that. Past that, the registration is a good thing, but overall, share the message about what Valor Archery Challenge is, what it's all about, and how it's trying to help.
So for this event in Colorado Springs, what was the date on that? Did you say the 19th?
April 19th.
Gosh, man, I can't believe that. I'm going to be in Colorado Springs like on the 24th of April. I'm going to miss you by a few days, and I don't know that I can extend that. But for any of you local businesses down in Colorado Springs,
actually, I'm working with Made in Montana Pet Treats. So
are you?
Yeah.
Well, so that's something that's local to Montana, but they could sell anywhere. I'm talking like I always, because of the business that I own, local service company, it wouldn't make sense for my roofing company to sponsor a Target in Colorado Springs, right? I'd have to charge a lot of money in per diem. But I'm speaking like if there's local companies, I know of a couple HVAC companies down in Colorado Springs that might be open to that. And any of you other companies listening to sponsor, this is the kind of stuff that people remember when it's like a mission, a good mission like this. People remember those kind of sponsorships. And they see those signs and that kind of sticks in people's mind. Well, I'm going to call these guys for a bid on my roof or whatever.
Well, it's not like a tack course where the course itself is labeled, but none of the targets are.
Yeah.
I'm going to put your name right on a target.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Can you put my face on it? People would just annihilate that thing.
No, I'm going to put your face on a spot next to the target.
Maybe the Western Huntsman can sponsor a target.
We could do that.
Okay.
I'm willing to work with you.
We could talk about that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, cool, man. This has been a fun talk.
Been an awesome conversation.
And I like meeting guys that are, out there doing stuff and being what's the word for it? Proactive. And I'm drawing a blank on the word. You come up with new things that people don't think about. Innovative. That's the word. Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. It's clearly been a long week already, and it's only Tuesday.
It's only Tuesday.
The hamster don't spin my wheel very fast, but I do. I really look up to that kind of innovation and that kind of mindset and that creativity that comes out of guys like you that make things happen. Stuff like this Valor Archery Challenge is a big deal. And let's face it, if money were no issues, if money were no issue, I think everybody would have one of these moving targets, Archery in Motion.
It's just a matter of time as people realize that the novelty aspect, the training aspect of it, it's just a lot of fun to shoot.
Yeah.
And whether you're shooting with a kid's bow at 5 feet, it's a lot of fun. Whether you're shooting at 78 yards to a steel plate target, it's a lot more fun.
So there is a way to that point. There's a way to set, those bracket with the steel target for rifle shooting. That I imagine it'd be pretty easy to mount one of those.
Already have it.
Oh, you do? You have the mount for it? Oh my gosh, that'd be sweet. I have the perfect range for that too. Still up at the outfitter. Okay. So we'll keep in touch about that stuff. So guys, everybody listening out there, archeryinmotion.com, and ValorArcheryChallenge.com. I'm going to have both of those websites right here in the show notes. You can just go, scroll down on this show, whatever platform you're listening to, and just click that link, and you guys can check it out. I think it's definitely worth. And what about I know Archery In Motion's on Instagram.
So is Valor.
Is it? They're both.
Yep. So they're both on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn accounts as well.
Okay, perfect. So you guys can go find those. I'll put as many of those links in the show notes as I can, so just to make it easier. But Sam, I appreciate it, man. This was a fun talk. And for those of you listening, Sam has a lot of patience. I had to reschedule this like twice.
I wasn't going to go there.
He's going to get off of this that gym over the Western Huntsman. What a flake!
I have another conversation with you in a heartbeat.
Well, I appreciate it. This was fun. We should keep in touch. So thanks a bunch for coming on. Really appreciate what you're doing, and let's keep in touch.
Will do. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate your time.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram @The Western Huntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.